I just returned from 3 incredible weeks in Oman, where I hiked golden sand dunes, swam through narrow wadis, snorkeled with sea turtles, explored ancient forts, haggled for goats, and ate my body weight in shawarmas. My name is Jeff Bell. In this video, I'll share my top 13 places in Oman and drop some useful tips along the way. You're watching Planet Bell. You'll find abandoned stone villages all over Oman, where you can play Indiana Jones and explore the ruins. But at Misfat Al Abriyeen, the locals restored several buildings, creating guest houses and cafes. Walking through the narrow streets of Misfat is like stepping back in time hundreds of years, as winding passageways link the mud brick and stone buildings. On the western side is a trail leading to palm groves, where workers harvest dates and grasses to feed livestock. You'll also see the cylindrical Rogan Fort and the water network that irrigates the farmland. After exploring the village, make sure to get a drink at the Halwa Cafe, which is atop a boulder in the center of town. You enter the stairway through a crack in the rock and climb several flights of stairs, but it's worth the effort. The view from the cafe is absolutely spectacular. We saw this incredible sunset up there, with the call to prayer echoing in the canyon. When you visit Nizwa, make sure you are there on a Friday so you can see the chaotic and atmospheric local market. Traders flock to Nizwa to sell fruits, dates, vegetables, and carpets. But the boisterous goat market is the highlight, which kicks off just after sunrise. Shepherds parade their goats and sheep around the circular arena, showing off their animals like a beauty pageant. And there are some shy animals that need some help walking down the catwalk. Buyers and sellers haggle noisily over the animals, and sometimes a mini auction breaks out when 2 or more people are interested. How does anyone keep track of what's happening, I wonder? The market is super photogenic, as all the men have on traditional clothes, and there are some fantastic characters in the crowd, like this guy who's holding his new goat in his lap. In a country of impressive forts and castles, Bahla Fort stands out for its sheer size and stunning location. Bahla Fort, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is adjacent to an oasis filled with palm trees and part of a larger complex with 13 kilometers of wall. Pro tip, be there at sunset, when you can watch the orange sun slip behind the mountain and illuminate the nearby mountains in golden light. In the modern heart of Muscat, you'll find the stunning Sultan Qaboos Mosque, a modern temple to Islam made of white marble. One must visit the mosque to appreciate it. Photos don't do the scale and detail justice. The chandelier that hangs from the 50-meter dome weighs over 8.5 tons and has over 600,000 crystals. The elaborate carpet in the main hall has over 1.7 billion knots. The mosque can hold over 20,000 worshippers, more than an NBA basketball arena. Non-Muslims can only visit between 8 and 11 a.m., but I recommend getting there as early as possible to beat the crowds and get the best light for photos. Ordinarily, a museum would not be a highlight of my trip, but the Oman Across the Ages is no ordinary museum. In fact, it's one of the best I've ever visited. As you walk through the museum, there are fascinating and beautiful displays about the country's history, wildlife, geography, and culture. You'll play interactive games where you can build and trade ships, dig canals, and make rock art. My favorite is a game to defend the fort, using cannonballs, murder holes, and arrows. And yes, murder hole is the correct term, which we'll talk about more when we get to number 5 on the list. Sur is a port city famous for its shipbuilding, and although the town beach isn't like a great place to go swimming, it is a perfect spot to watch the sunrise or sunset and hang out with the locals. In the morning, joggers run along the sandy beach while fishermen cast lines into the bay. Sailors launch their boats and head into the sea, while birds dive bomb fish and scavenge on the shores. It's a serene, quiet place as the sun rises over the mosque and mountains to the east. At sunset, the beach takes on a festival-like atmosphere as kids and grown-ups play soccer on the beach, families picnic in the sand, and rowers and fishermen return from the sea. You can pay local boatmen to take you on the water for a sunset cruise, or just enjoy the views of the lighthouse and the old town from the shore. Jabreen Castle was an unexpected highlight for us. The well-preserved labyrinthian stone castle is at the edge of the desert and has a Game of Thrones feel. Built in 1675, Jabreen Castle was an important center for learning astrology, medicine, and Islamic law, and there are dozens of rooms you can explore inside the castle. Jabreen is a little off the beaten path, which kind of adds to the mystery and mystique of the place. We were literally the only people there and got to explore the narrow corridors and maze-like castle on our own. Mutrah, the old town of Muscat, is my favorite part of the capital city. Mutrah has several awesome attractions, like Nizwa Fort, which towers above the bay. Hiking to the top gives commanding views of the whitewashed old town, barren mountains, and turquoise sea, and the Sultan of Oman's ginormous yacht, which is bigger than some cruise ships. The maze-like Mutrah Souk, which smells of burning frankincense, perfumes, and spices, is the perfect place to haggle over souvenirs or pick up traditional Omani clothes. After exploring the old town, take a walk along the promenade or enjoy a milk tea at a seaside cafe with the locals. Imposing Nizwa Fort dominates the center of town, but its subtle, deadly details make it fascinating. Above the entrances and at certain doorways in the castle are murder holes, that's actually the correct term for it, which are small openings where soldiers can pour boiling hot date syrup on invaders. Usually placed around corners or on stairwells are pitfalls, deep holes where unsuspecting attackers will fall to their death or at least shatter their legs and be stuck in a pit. You know you aren't the most valuable soldier when they send you in first to be candied by date syrup or to locate the pitfalls. Like Bahla Fort, be here at sunset. As the sun slips over the horizon, lighting up the western sky and bathing the mountains in orange light, the call to prayer rings out from nearby mosques, echoing in the fortress walls. At 3,082 meters, Jebel Shams is the highest peak in Arabia, and the view from atop the ridgeline is absolutely stunning. Most visitors don't hike to the summit of the mountain, but instead hike the harrowing balcony walk or enjoy the views from atop the cliffs. The views of sunrise and sunset from the ridgeline are truly magical. Waking up to see the sun come up over Jebel Shams and illuminate the Hijaz Mountains is worth the early wake-up call. There are a few guest houses on the canyon rim, but you can camp right on the edge if you'd like. Just be prepared to share your dinner with goats who think they're entitled to your food. Driving to Jebel Shams is half the fun. The views along the way get increasingly more dramatic as you wind up the mountainside. You don't need a 4x4, but there is a stretch of rugged, unpaved road that will give you second thoughts about continuing. We made it just fine in our two-wheel drive sedan, but then again, I used to live in Alaska, and I kinda know how to drive on rough roads. About an hour by boat from Muscat are the Dimaniyat Islands, an archipelago of stark, treeless islands surrounded by translucent seas. In contrast to the barren islands, just underwater is a forest of kaleidoscopic coral reefs, home to colorful tropical fish, and 6 species of sea turtles. The diving and snorkeling in the area are first-rate, and even in the winter, the sea is relatively warm. Some islands have beautiful, albeit small, white sand beaches, and tour operators stop on the islands for lunch, swimming, and to hike around. I almost didn't go to the Wahiba Sands. At the risk of sounding pretentious, I've been to sand dunes in the Sahara, Wadi Rum, the Atacama, Colorado, and even my home state of Oklahoma. But we ended up spending 2 days in the desert, and it was not only a highlight of our trip to Oman, but it was my favorite desert experience of all time. The Wahiba Sands are on the edge of the Empty Quarter, the world's largest and most inhospitable region of dunes. On our first night, we explored the dunes in a 4x4 with a local Bedouin, drank tea, and ate dates at sunset. The next day, I hiked the dunes by our camp at sunrise and sunset, and the views were even better. At dusk, desert winds turn the loose sand into bits of shrapnel, and flying bits of sand swirl around, stinging your skin and reshaping the dunes. At sunrise, with the sand heavy with dew, the dunes are a photographer's paradise, with rich contours, textures, shadows, and light. The highlight of our trip was a hike and swim through Wadi Shab, a spectacular red rock canyon with clear pools of water. To visit the wadi, you start with a short boat ride to the trailhead and hike 45 minutes through a narrow canyon. The hike alone would be worth the trip, but once you arrive at the pools, it gets even better. Deep in the wadi, you'll find a series of clear pools perfect for a refreshing swim. Be warned that scrambling from pool to pool can be a bit treacherous. The rocks on the canyon floor are very slippery when wet, and since you're swimming, you'll be wet. Eventually, you arrive at the main attraction, the water cave. I tried swimming through the cave, but it was narrow and there were a lot of people behind me, and so I panicked and backed out. I wanted to avoid drowning in Oman and making international news. And luckily for you, I survived, because I'll be sharing more videos from spectacular Oman which you can see by smashing those like and subscribe buttons. Thank you for watching.